Hey, ski racing fans, and welcome to the American Downhillers podcast presented by skiracing.com, where we will share our thoughts and stories on the legendary World Cup downhills that will be run all winter long. I'm Doug Lewis, two-time Olympian and downhill bronze medalist from 1985. Yeah, that was in the 1900s in Bormio, Italy. Joining me are three of the most celebrated downhillers in our U.S. downhillers history. Let's start off with AJ Kipp, four-time Olympian, a World Cup winner, multiple World Cup winner in my mind, and also a World Championship bronze medalist. AJ, where are you coming from? And very quickly, what's your favorite part about downhill?
Yeah, hey, good morning, and hi, ski racing fans. I'm sitting at home in Hood River. We haven't really gotten winter started here yet, but we're looking forward to it, and I'm excited for the start of the World Cup season. And my thing about downhill, my favorite thing about the sport of downhill is just the variety and the creativity that you've got to bring to the sport. Every course is a mystery that has to be figured out, and it changes from year to year. But also, as you have a longer career, you definitely bring things from one year to the next, and you learn the nuances of each course, and every one of them is totally different. So it's really a lot of fun to be a downhiller and to just figure out the mystery of every course.
Definitely a puzzle to be figured out. Next up, D-Money, Daron Rahlves, three-time Olympian, world champion, winner of 12 World Cup downhills, including a Super G in a downhill at the legendary Kitzbuhel. Daron, where are you? It looks like you're on top of the moon. Where are you? And I'm going to limit you to 3 words. Describe Kitzbuhel in 3 words.
Hey, what's up, Lou? Good morning, guys. AJ and Marco. Yeah, I'm in Mammoth. Just rolled down here last night. We're gonna go ski Mammoth today, just for the day, with Team Palisades. And it's dark. It's dark and the guns are blazing. They're trying to make snow. It's pretty dry out right now, but I guess conditions are pretty good. Looking forward to it. Kitzbuhel, yeah. Definitely, I'd say just the will to go fast. Got to have the will to go fast there.
All right, that's too many words, but that describes Kitzbuhel for sure. Sitting in that starting gate, which we'll talk about a lot, you have to have the will. Lastly, our youngest speed demon and founder of American Downhillers, Marco Sullivan, 4-time Olympian, World Cup winner, and holds the record for most downhill starts ever for an American at 105 times thrown himself down the mountain. Marco, where are you and why are you there?
Well, thanks for calling me young, Lou, because I'm up in Lake Louise and I'm looking at all these actual young racers and not feeling so young anymore. But I'm in Lake Louise. I'm helping out some of the forerunners this week. We've got 4 American boys up here who took on forerunning duties, and they're learning the track and kind of hoping to get it dialed in before they race the NORAMs here in a couple of weeks. So I'm here, get to hang with the World Cup crew again and see what's going on, and it's pretty fun.
Well, we're going to ask you what it's like up there on the hill as we get to our predictions of what's going to happen this weekend. Anyway, during the next 30 minutes, we'll break down Lake Louise, share our thoughts, a little bit of a history, and give you our picks on who's going to ski away with the trophy this weekend. All right, question number 1. This is for everyone. I'm going to start with Sully. Overall thoughts on Lake Louise. What do you think of when I say Lake Louise downhill? Sully, you've had 2 podiums there. Describe this course and maybe why you liked it.
Lake Louise, I feel like it always gets described as a good start to the World Cup season because it's not the gnarliest course. It's pretty mellow as far as the hill goes. But this year they've added a bunch of terrain, trying to kind of spice it up a little bit, almost Valgardin-esque, where they're trying to keep you rolling and jumping the whole way. It still is very doable for all these guys. The first training run yesterday saw the racers saying, there is a couple new elements, but the snow is generally grippy. They put a little water in the snow, so it's gets a little slick in places, but generally nice, easy, grippy snow, and a lot of tucking, a lot of just high speed downhill turns. And it's a great one to start the season. And I think that's why I always enjoyed it too, because I've been here a lot racing NORAMs as a kid, and it was a place where you feel comfortable. There's no super big risk like a Kitzbuhel or anything. It's just a good place to start the year.
Yeah, definitely match your style, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Now, going over to Daron, your best ever there was a 4th, I believe. Your thoughts? Was it just not gnarly enough for you, or is it a puzzle you haven't figured out? Talk to us about Lake Louise for you.
Yeah, Lou, well, I'd say Lake Louise was really challenging in the fact to try and find a way to separate yourself from the pack. And for me, I needed to have really technical terrain to do that. There's a lot of gliding there, but what people overlook is, I mean, it is technical. There's some really tough turns. I mean, coming to coach's corner, fishnet, into Fallaway, then exiting on the bottom flats, and that to me was a place I had to really focus on to get the most out of what my skills were. But then everywhere else, it's like aerodynamics, skiing clean, looking way ahead so you can just really trim the line down and execute it well. And like Marco said, it was like the best starting race we could have for World Cup, because you lead up through the year with more challenging races, but it's a wake-up call because you have the next week going to Birds of Prey, and that's a serious one for sure with some big errors. But I think it's a great downhill. I've been all over the map there with like results, not on the podium, but my last year was a tough year because I was thinking, okay, I just need to be top 5, which I was, the year before, and I got 32nd. I just completely blew it, and because I was taking too much risk and blowing some big turns, where I shouldn't have. So you can't push too hard there.
Yeah, talk about, a lot of people say trimming the line. We may know what it means. Talk about trimming the line. What exactly does that mean?
Well, trimming the line is just trying to, like, if we say pull the string tight, if you have like a rope, like through the course and it's a little loose and kind of loopy, you just pull it, tight, and you're trying to basically cut down the distance you're skiing. And, just that ultimately, if you do it in the right place, you can make up speed. And so it's really trying to work with gravity as much as possible. Bleed turns out, let it run out just enough where you're not fighting against the fall line, the terrain too much, but really trying to chip off like just little sections where you can get away with, run a tighter line than everybody else.
Nice. Let's move to AJ, the old man, except for me.
Yeah.
I think you ran this back in 1991. Was it different then as far as course conditions? What were your thoughts back then when you ran it?
I mean, they definitely added terrain. I think the course is more or less the same now. Responding to a little bit to what Daron's talking about with trim and line. I mean, that's obviously what we all do in a ski race, whether it's a slalom, or downhill. You're always trying to take the straightest, fastest line you can. But Lake Louise is one of those places where it just doesn't pay off a lot of times to trim that line. I mean, and you also have to kind of limit your risk as well. Like Daron said, you get too aggressive at that place and try to dive in on a line, and you start to blow some speed. And I mean, the key to that course is not making mistakes, and it's about carrying as much speed as you possibly can through the gun barrel, out of that whole upper steep section onto those lower flats, and then letting them roll. And then you hope your serviceman whacks the skis well, and you've got the fastest pair of boards you can. But I mean, taking the risk with line at a place like Lake Louise, and there's a few other courses on the circuit that are similar, but sometimes it doesn't pay off. You got to be really, really careful with it.
Yeah, it is the first. Let's talk about a little bit having this as the first. If you compare Lake Louise to a Kitzbuhel, Wengen, Birds of Prey, it may not rank up there for excitement, for terrain, for difficulty, but it does work for the first downhill of the year. Marco, the almost all the athletes in the world were either at Nikiska or at Copper. Does training at Copper for those 2 weeks before Lake Louise help or hurt? And describe that transition. What can they take from training at Copper to Lake Louise?
Yeah, I feel like even though Lake Louise is described as the mellower course, it's still a big step up from any kind of training that you're doing. To get on a World Cup track with a lot of terrain, high speeds, it's still a wake-up call, no matter if it's Lake Louise or or anything else. You know, I was actually riding up the lift yesterday with a young Austrian kid, first time at Lake Louise, and he was like, yeah, everyone always told me this was really, really an easy track, but I don't know, like I'm pretty nervous. And he was going up for his run. And, you know, regardless, if you're hopping into a World Cup downhill, it's going to be a step up from any training you've done in the summer. And there is a great training venue at Copper, and these guys have been able to run long downhill courses, get the legs working, the lungs working, but it's still more or less just like gliding practice, and it's practice for the big show. And Lake Louise is the start of the big show. So I think the nerves are happening, and as the week progresses, this track traditionally gets like a little icier, a little bumpier, and by race day, it's game on for sure.
Daron, you were just at Copper. Describe what you were doing there, but you know, when you were training at Copper and then going to Lake Louise, what did you add to your training mentally and physically to try to up the effort to get you ready for Lake Louise?
Yeah, well, Copper was, it was actually really good training for those guys. I mean, it was basically a World Cup field there, besides like no Canadian, Swiss, but everybody else. And, these guys were firing. I've seen in the past, though, from our American guys that are faster in Copper, they're not translating it over to Lake Louise. And, just to me, it's a little bit of a surprise because the snow is pretty similar. It's dry, it's compact and all that. You know, they get into some, good jumps and the bottom section, there's some like high speed and some micro terrain where, the skis legs and skis are doing the work, trying to stay smooth and on good snow contact. But I think for some it does. I think those guys are fast at Copper and just didn't like bring it to Lake Louise. It's more of a mental kind of race day thing. But you'll see, Kilday was really fast there. Johan Clary was really fast in training. RCS. And, I think those guys are going to kind of translate over, to being fast at Lake Louise as well. For races,
compound on that, what you're saying, like yep. Max Franz won the first training yesterday. And I was talking to Travis Ganon, came up, he said, how Max Franz was 3 seconds out every day we were training in Copper. And how did he just pull that out of the hat, So like you're saying, it's some guys it translates and some guys it's just like, I don't know, Copper doesn't mean a ton, but it is awesome that they were all training together last week. So
yeah, I think, just they're trying to get a good feel, right? And that's one thing I tried to pick up on, learn from Marco, was a good feel for the snow and just having good touch. And that really makes a big difference in Lake Louise. You got to like pipe some turns for sure, but you got to be really like silky smooth in those places. That's why he had a lot of success there in Lake Louise. But, it's just, just being a gamer, game day,
I was going to say that, training run number one has got no consequences, basically, especially the first training run of the season. Everyone's just going out there to get their legs, going, and it's like, okay, here's the first one. Let's just get this out of the way. No pressure, no expectations. And suddenly like the guys at the top are people that you don't expect. And someone that's like in the 30s or 40s is like, this doesn't make any sense, but man, I'll tell you what, wait till today, wait till tomorrow. Let's see. Then when the pressure comes, when people start to really focus in on what their tasks are, I think things are going to change. Looking at that training result of yesterday, definitely some surprises at the top and down further, but I know that that's going to flip around as we get through this week.
Yeah, well, look at the past history. Sorry, Lou, real quick, but yeah, Max Franz has been really fast there. I think he's won in Lake Louise, right? Yep. He's won up there. Yeah. Beat Foyts is a guy that like not even close in training and always steps up. So he's a racehorse for sure. Coming to the plate when it matters. So
let's take that a little step further. AJ, how did you go into training runs? Was it all out 1, 2, 3, or were you a Beat Foyts guy just hanging out, checking it out? How did you deal? What tool was the training runs for you?
So my approach to training runs, I'm a firm believer that your fastest run down the track is going to be your second or third run, because after that, I think there's just some attrition in your focus, and I think that there's always a little bit of magic there when you're still taking a risk. And a lot of times that magic happens in the second or third run. So I was always trying to make my first run a feel it out run, like 85%. And then my second or third run, I was really trying to peak right in there. So I didn't want to give away too much or have my best run in a training run. I wanted to try to save it for race day. So there's a little bit of an approach there. And sometimes there's a little bit of gamesmanship, standing up a couple of gates before the finish line in a training run. And honestly, a lot of people think that you're trying to game your competitors. For me, I was leaving some in the tank for myself. I always wanted to know that my best run was going to come on race day, whether that was just because it was the magic or because I was going to tuck it all the way to the finish line. So, yeah, I mean, it's there's a little bit of a strategy there for sure.
Take that, Daron, and translate it to Kitzbuhel versus Lake Louise training runs. Is there a difference for you, training run at Kitzbuhel, training run at Lake Louise, and why?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing what AJ was saying, like maybe like 85% of effort, to go into, the first train run in Kitzbuhel, just because of consequences. You want to be super solid and you're trying to just hit your timing, the line. But, come into the last train run, I was trying to go pretty much full speed. And then still, I felt like I had a little more, just that mental side, I'd throw on black socks, black long underwear, black shirt under my suit because, that was how I was going to get a little harder that day, and mentally and fired up for races. But I wouldn't wear that same setup, for train runs. It was just like, okay, there's a little something extra, maybe just a little bit in the mind that's coming together a little more complete for race day. But you still need to have a good feel. I share the same tech. This is a good story with AJ. Back when I was on Rossi and Eddie Wahlberger, and he put me on the slowest skis for training runs. I'd be like 6 seconds out. And then he put me on these rocket ships. And I'd be like a second and a half out on the race, but I'd be making mistakes, blowing into sections, like way too much speed. And I had a trouble, I had a lot of arguments with him. Like, hey, like, when are you going to trust me to be on fast skis for training? I need this comparison for race day. And I think that's kind of what made me really kind of like the end of my career push to try and to match like almost that race speed on last train run.
Sully, I want to take it one step further on training runs. Besides you figuring out the line or whatever, what's going on? Testing skis, how much communication between racers are going on? But talk about the skis and then how you work with your other teammates on training runs.
The ski component is a big one. Like, walking down in the wax cabins here at Lake Louise, there's each tech who takes care of maybe one or two racers has 15 pair of skis on the wall, so they probably 5 of those are potential race skis, and they got to figure that out. So in these couple training runs, they're testing, they're seeing what's going to go. So that's a big component. And they're breaking down the split timers, seeing the flat sections, the steep sections, where are the guys fast, where are the skis running. And one, I was thinking about what AJ said, one kind of pro tip when you're looking at split times from a training run, that last split, you'll see, guys will go from like 5th place down to 52nd, because just if you watch the race in person, a lot of guys are kind of throwing in some turns, throwing it sideways, not really giving away what they have on the training days. So when you look on the FIS site and pull up those splits, you can see the last one, and that kind of shows you what's going on.
Or the other way around, some guys are hacking and just like they need to have that extra, confidence. So they're getting
the low tuck all the way to
the finish line to try and make up some speed. And they're like, yes, like in the top 15 or something. Those
are the guys that are qualifying for their
exactly
spots.
So there's some of that going on up there too, I bet, with a lot of the teams.
Yeah, that's mentioning qualifying. Talking to this young Austrian racer yesterday, he has to qualify. He was Swiss, but he has to qualify for a spot. They have 6 guys racing for 4 spots. Mm-hmm. And with the bigger countries, or the countries that field a bigger team, that there's a lot of that going on, and they qualify actually on the 2nd training run because they want the 3rd training run, if they get a 3rd, to be where the guys can kind of relax and figure out that final race day line. But the 2nd training run, which is today, will be qualifying for those bigger Switzerland, Austria, maybe the Norwegians, they'll have guys who are going full race pace, trying to get a spot in the Saturday race.
I was going to say some of my favorite races were when we'd have, 2 or 3 training runs scheduled on the schedule, and then all of a sudden weather comes in and they cancel the last one. And I mean, a lot of guys go out like our approach with taking it easy on the first run, and then you're like, wait a minute, I don't get a second training run. What do I do on race day? Well, that's when it's time to pull it out of your pocket and fire. And frankly, from my theory of your best run being second or third, it worked out great for me. I love that. And I mean, it throws a little bit of a wrench in the works for those nations that have to qualify in, but that's just another part of what makes downhill great.
And I think at Lake Louise, when you don't have that race pace of the last 2 months, you need those training runs, and they become even more important for ski testing, for mental preparation, and to find that race speed that you haven't really had in 9 months. All right, let's break down this course. All right, this course, as we said, may be on the quote unquote easier side, but it's a great one to start with and has some really tough demanding spots. Daron, let's talk about your probably favorite part, Fishnet Fallaway onto gun barrel, probably the fastest, most dangerous part. Take us through it, what it looks like, what it feels like, and what you were focused on when you ran it.
Yeah, Lou. So I mean, coming into that, you have a jump, which is kind of fun, So I mean, it's like you come out the flats, high speed downhill turns, catch some air, and then you're trying to like really kind of like find that entry point, and just like once you commit, you got to commit. And going on the edge, and even like on that left footer there, Fishnet, it was pretty important to I was focusing more on the exit than anything. And so depending on how you're coming in, sometimes you'd be really trying to be as really clean as you could, or other times you had to be a little kind of like soft on that outside ski just to kind of get that depth in that direction. And so like I was saying before about trimming line, I'd be trying to come in there a little tighter and almost like just, peel or just like drift the top of the turn a little bit to get that direction with the skis. And then when you get on, you got to get on it. And it's like a quick left, right foot. And then the like I said about the exit, it's really important to get that right footer established, like before you go down on the pitch, because you don't get dragged too wide. And that right there is so important, because that right left onto the flats is you got to carry so much speed, to try and you're maintaining speed from there to the finish pretty much. And you can't really gain any more speed from there down. So to me, that was like, find a good flow, look ahead, really try and like be, just strong in the skis. And my thought too is like, I always tell like, ski racers, like, I want to try and help. Don't think about skiing through your feet, ski to try and get in the next turn. And so just that mindset of just trying to get in the next turn, you're hunting that next piece of terrain down a next turn, that makes your body move a little differently. And that's why I was really focusing on that section too. I didn't want to just ski these turns. I want to try and get it from one turn into the next as quick as possible. And I think that really helps kind of that train of thought helps you go faster.
Any follow-up, AJ and Marco, about those 2 turns?
Yeah, Daron's comment about flow is money on that. I mean, really the 99% of that course is about flow. The upper part, the middle part, the Wee-Wixie flats, all that terrain. The only part that's not flow, and it's just pure aggression is Fishnet turning. And you're right. I mean, you got grippy, snow, and you got all this flow and everything's easy. And all of a sudden you come into Fishnet and it's bumpy and gnarly, and they ice the hell out of it the day before, and it's just a totally different turn in the course, and everything else is like, it's different feel, it's different snow, it's different terrain. And you're right. I mean, you just have to fight your way through that turn and not dump speed. And that's the key.
For me, everything else was flow. I think that's a great word for the 80% of this course that isn't Fishnet Fallaway. It's flow, it's feel, it's reacting. But there, for me, I skied a lot like Daron. I was the aggression one. That was just visualization. I would go over that switch to that right footer so much in my mind, because if you are a millisecond late, you're down the fall line, right? You have to have that timing. So that for me was 2 sections of course. AJ, take it a little further with the terrain, right? There's, as Marco said, they're putting in a lot of terrain. What does it mean to flow and feel that terrain? And do you need to be on a specific line in parts of this course?
No, I think the line part of it is a little bit of, you take what you're given. You definitely have a line that you've inspected and you're trying to execute, but doesn't always work out. And if you fight that fact and try to get back on that line or stay right on it, you're going to be scrubbing some speed. So you take what you get. You got to be really, really clean on the edge because it isn't very steep. You don't have a lot of opportunity to re-accelerate if you lose a little bit of speed. And then it's just a lot of leg action. I mean, you're trying to just always follow the terrain and just be really, really supple and have a lot of touch on the snow through all of that, except for fishnet where you're just stomping on it. So yeah, I mean, that's where we talked about a little bit earlier about not being too aggressive at Lake Louise with your line and with your approach. You can almost back off a little bit there and just kind of let things happen and just don't get in the way of it.
Yeah. Marco,
I got a
go for
question
it.
to ask the AJ there. I mean, you're unbelievably fast in the flats and gliding. And what was the kind of like just train of thought that you brought, to your racing to be quick? I mean, what you just explained there about pumping like terrain and using your legs a lot, I think is really important. But I think it'd be cool for all of us to hear, your number one kind of, focus in big, gliding turns with terrain.
Yeah, it was just a feel thing. I tried to limit the amount of pressure I was putting into the edge of my downhill ski. The more pressure you put in, the deeper the ski digs into the snow. And I mean, we're talking about, millifractions here, but I mean, it all makes a difference. It all adds up at the end. And it's finding the flat ski and letting the skis. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about letting them swim, right? Well, I don't know about letting them swim like this, because that gets a little dangerous, but I definitely, felt the snow through my feet. And that was really key for me in gliding and just letting everything go. I mean, I really think that, it's a gravity sport and you got to let gravity do its job and just don't get in the way of it.
The gravity master, Marco Sullivan. Talk about, I just remember I ran Lake Louise in 1981 as a Canadian Nationals, and I was 17. I came off a gun barrel and I think I was crying, as in tears were streaming because it was so fast. Describe exiting gun barrel with that kind of speed. And what does it feel like to carry that much speed and try to keep that speed, Marco?
That is the fastest section of the course there, coming off the steep. I think you hit about 135 K an hour, which is moving, that's like you're feeling wind in your face. I remember one year, actually, when I was third here, my was going so fast right there, my helmet was like going back on my head, and you can see in the video I'm in my tuck and I like reach up and pull my helmet down, and it's fast. So
yeah, but you never buckled your helmet, dude. It was always like loose, flapping, and
he had the gaper
Marco
gap.
would have to be reminded by our start guy to cinch the helmet down a little bit to be so loose. And you actually lost your helmet in Val d'Isere once too.
That was in Bengen once. I crashed. My helmet came off and was bouncing down the hill.
No, that was Val d'Isere. I remember going back to La
He hit his head so hard.
I remember
that. Doctor was stitching you up in the backside like La Becca, because that was the big crash at the bottom. But I want to know the same thing that AJ said about like touch and feel and just letting the kind of like ankles move. Marco, I mean, you were the fastest one out of all of us there, and obviously had incredible gliding skills with touch. But what was your train of thought, like AJ was like commenting on?
If you guys can still hear me, I just go, yeah, okay. It's really similar to what AJ was saying with the flow, and the gravity is trying to pull you down the hill, so trying to not get in the way of that and being really balanced on both skis, so you're kind of even pressure, you're not digging in those edges, and pretty much pulling off a line where you're going as straight as you can, but with the least pressure possible to maintain those turns. So you're not, a lot of more aggressive skiers get on track like Lake Louise and they're kind of going gate to gate and really jamming the edges a bit. But if you can take that flow all the way through, and for me, it was a lot about being balanced evenly on both skis and kind of just looking way down the track, actually looking way ahead and trying to link sections in like 4, 5, 6 gates. Like, how am I going to ski this section without throwing any snow? Not just going gate to gate. And Lake Louise is a great example of that, where, like we've been saying, you got to keep that speed going from start to finish. And of one mistake, it's really hard to get the speed back, because there's only really 3 steep parts on the whole track. And if you blow it, that gravity has a hard time getting you back up to speed.
It's a great thing about edging, right? I just remember early US ski team camps. Let's try to ski with the least edge possible, edge or breaks, right? So we would just try to really feather and really learn how much edge you needed to turn a certain radius. So all good stuff that you can practice as a 14, 15, 16-year-old. Least edge, the better, breaks or edges. All right, I'm going to bring it into the danger factor. We talked about this is a great one to start. It's a little bit easier, but this has been a downhill that has taken out a lot of people. Loren Ross, TJ Lanning, I think John Kuchera from Canada. What is it about this course that can also put people in the hospital and end their careers potentially? Anybody want to take this?
I think that, I've seen this course a lot on TV, covering it for NBC for 15, 20 years. So I think a bit of it is lack of focus, right? This course, it's really easy to let this course kind of lull you into not focusing as much as you would at maybe a more challenging and risky course like a Bormio or a Kitzbuhel or Garmisch. And so maybe that little lack of focus. But the other part of it is just a change of rhythm from most of the course, especially the upper section where you're flowing, right? And the snow is nice and grippy, into Fishnet where, shoot, all of a sudden it's bumpy and icy, and either a ski pops off or you're super surprised and you take too direct of a line. I mean, you see a lot of that where people get in real trouble in Fishnet.
Absolutely.
Right, go for it.
Sorry, that Fishnet section, it just catches you off guard. And we saw 3 years ago, Manny Osborne Paradis, he's won this race before. He ended his career in Fishnet. You go in there and all of a sudden it's bumpy and icy, and that's where you see most of the crashes happen. Fishnet into Fallaway, C-turn. We had a forerunner yesterday, packed the A-net on C-turn. There is consequences in downhill, and this course is not an exception for sure.
Focus.
Another place that stands out to me on Lake Louise is the top, really deep. When AJ was talking about like using those legs and really pumping those legs and good aerodynamics and gliding, I mean, there's some speed up there, and there's a lot of like terrain, and that is like my biggest memory on the top is just really trying to work speed, stay in a good aero position, but then like you guys are talking about, being really settled on the skis. But I mean, all the way up until a Super G start, I mean, it picks up speed and it gets going up there, and then you kind of link in where the Super G start is, and then I think the same thing with these guys are saying, like everybody kind of comes in like, not completely 100% focused, and you're not giving it full respect. And that's when things happen, like Marco was saying, like it's a World Cup hill. It's still demanding. There's a lot of speed and terrain there. You make one little mistake and it's going to bite you back quick.
I would argue this race is actually won and lost in that section between the Super G start and the Fishnet turn. It's called Wee Waxy Flats. And you look at the split times of guys who have been on the podium in this race, they're always fast in that section, and that speed just builds down all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can win it there, but you can certainly lose it very easily on Fallaway and on the flats at the bottom. All right, we're about 30 minutes in. I want to start to wrap this up. When AJ and I were racing, our first World Cup was at Val d'Isere. So we spent Thanksgiving in Europe trying to find a turkey. That's a whole nother podcast. Marco and Daron, talk about Thanksgiving in Lake Louise. What goes on with the American team?
Every once in a while, they cook us a turkey or something if it's a good year. But I've spent the last when I was racing, about 15 years of Thanksgivings here in Lake Louise, and usually it's just a buffet. Sometimes that, like I said, they would acknowledge us and give us a separate room and a turkey. That was few and far between, but you have the camaraderie of your teammates, and your family's not here, but it's your family from the road, and it's still a good time even though you're away from home.
Yeah, it's tough that time of year, but I remember having nice turkey feeds there. They did something special for us, for the Americans, which is really cool. and had all the fixings with the turkey. So we kind of like, just had a good gathering with amongst team, and like your teammates, your coaches, your service guys, you are family. You're on the road the whole season, so it's nice to kind of just be able to drop back into some like just normalcy and not just be feeling like you're traveling on a bag and hotel to hotel. But Chateau Lake Louise is a nice spot to kick back at, and I remember even skating out there, like the lake, just like not a flake of snow on it on some dry cold years, but you could skate the lake like end to end, and playing hockey, and it's all lit up with like Christmas lights. I'm sure if you look out Marco's window, he's got a good view. But just it was definitely a place to enjoy for sure before while you're racing, but figure out how you're gonna stay warm up there too. Usually it's really cold up there in Lake Louise up in Canada.
Yeah, bring the duct tape for your face.
That's a good point with the it's the opening World Cup speed race, and it's also the entire race stays at the Chateau Lake Louise, and so it's almost like a reunion each year, where it's pretty unique for all the teams to stay in one place, and it is a really kind of majestic, beautiful place on the lake, and it's just a good spot to reunite. Everyone's eating buffet dinners together the whole World Cup, and it really is the kickoff of the season in that sense.
All right, so who will win? I'm gonna talk a little bit about some facts while you guys try to figure out your top three. I have mine written right here, but who's going to win? The Austrians have won it 7 times, and all the greats have won it here. Herben Meyer, Eberharder, Volkhofer, Strobel, and Franz. So the Austrians have won it the most. We can talk about why that is, maybe. Norwegians have won it 4 times, including Svindal and Jansrud. The Swiss, 4 times as well, including Feutz and Didier Couche a long time ago, and a couple of Italians, a couple of great flow Italians, Peter Phil and Dominique Paris. So, and Bode Miller, let's mention Bode Miller. Bode Miller was I think the only American, you can correct me if I'm wrong, to win the downhill up there. So a lot of Austrians, Norwegians, Swiss, not a lot of Americans. Over the last year, it's been Dressen, Paris, Janka in the last time 2 years ago. And then before that, it was Franz, Innerhofer, and Paris. So looking a little bit of the training run yesterday, which is the first one, as we said, doesn't mean a whole lot. I'm going to go with the Austrians. So my top 3, I hate to say it, I'm American downhiller, but I'm going to go Meyer, Kriegmeier, and Streetinger. So I'm going to go all Austrian sweep. I hate to say it, but I'm just going to stick it out there. Does anybody else want to put their 3 out there and tell me why?
That's painful seeing all those Austrians on your card there.
I know. I'm mad at myself.
I'll say, I think the Americans are actually on track right now, skiing really fast. And Travis Ganong was 3rd yesterday in training. He said he felt like he was going slow, so he's got a lot more in the tank. RCS is skiing really well. And I think my top 3, I'm going to go with the big guy, Dominic Paris. He's rolling. He's a gamer, game day guy. So I'll go Dominic, Ganong, RCS.
Nice.
I like that a little better.
Red, white, and blue right there. All right, who's next?
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, I always am going to want to root for the Americans number 1, but it's hard to count out Feutz, especially when, he trains like he did yesterday, just kind of in the back and quiet, kind of attack from the back. Show up on race day kind of a guy, and Paris is the same way. So both of those guys, I think you got to keep on the radar screen. I would really love to see RCS make this the comeback story, but Steven is definitely a guy that I think if he's feeling good, this is a perfect way for him to jump into this season. It's not that tough of a hill. He's done it. He's run this place a million times. So I'm rooting for those guys.
And we know Nyman is feeling good, and that guy with fast skis is unbeatable on the flats. D Money.
I mean, like you said, this is tough. I mean, there's 10 guys that could be on the podium, and I'm gonna be a true American downhiller and root for the U.S. boys. And I really feel like RCS has kind of a step up on everybody else on our team. I mean, he switched over to head. He's got Heinz in his corner, who is Lindsey Vaughn's tech that knows Lake Louise in and out. So he's going to be bringing some freaking rocket ships there. The kid's skiing well. He was fast in copper. I'm going to go with the Norwegian Kilde, also on the podium. And it's hard to bet against the Austrians. So, it's basically Kriegmeyer or Matthias Meyer. So those two guys. But yeah, I'd love to see, the season kick off like we all would, you're trying to be realistic, Louis. I know that, but at least AJ, Marco, and I are pulling for some Americans here.
I have
Always.
I have Ganong, Nyman, RCS is 4, 5, 6. So
yeah, I like to put Ganong, Nyman, RCS, all the boys in there, and
Jared Goldberg actually is skiing quite fast. Goldie was fast in training yesterday, and he's been, I think, pretty fast in copper as well.
Yeah, Goldie too. He's just just
good to see.
Gosh, I want to see all these guys do well, and maybe a 5-way tie for Americans.
So you have RCS, Kilde, and who?
I'll go Kriegmeyer.
Okay, Creek. Last question before we sign off. It's been great. We're talking about Lake Louise. We have AJ, D Money, and Sully. Let's break down RCS just a little bit. I think he's kind of like he's all of us, right? He's grounded. He's that strong-minded AJ Kitt. He's the aggressive, unafraid Daron Rahlves. He has the feel of Sully. He has the technical ability that I thought I had. So he's like everything. I think we're waiting for that American downhiller to win the downhill globe. He has all the pieces to me. Not that the other guys don't, but wow, talk about RCS if you want to a little bit. I think he has it all.
Yeah, I do too. I was really, really excited about his season last year, before, Kitzbuhel. He had such great success in Bormio. And I always say, if you can ski fast in Bormio, you got to look out for that guy in Kitzbuhel, because those are so similar, the approach to those two courses. And so, but I agree with you. You can do it on the easy courses. Daron being a guy that won in Kitzbuhel struggled at places like Lake Louise. And frankly, I think you're right, Louis. I think RCS can do it in both styles of course. So, and very much like Marco being able to have success in a place like Wengen. So, yeah, the guy's a complete package. But that one other intangible piece of the package is just, can you pull it off? Can you pull it off when it matters? Can you approach the sport like it does matter? Bode had that whole package too, except for, unfortunately, I just don't think he really either I know he believed it, but it was just like pulling it off, and winning that title was just elusive for some reason. So yeah, I think he's definitely our best hope for it right now.
Yeah, I think RCS has an amazing touch on the snow for sure. It's fun to watch him ski, and he showed in Bormio last year that he can pull it off on game day. And the only block to me for him is, after he won in Bormio, you saw him start taking an extra element of risk, where he knew he was so confident in skiing. He started taking a line that was really hard to pull off, and that bit him in Kitzbuhel, where he crashed and ultimately ended his season. So if he can just rein it in a little bit and ski within himself, I think he does have what it takes to be right in there on all these tracks for sure.
Yeah, I'll just finish up pretty much backing up what you said, Lou. He's got the complete package. He's got great touch. He's really strong. He's just really grounded, and it seems to be just laid back and confident. But when it comes down to racing, he's going. And like Marco said, he was taking a lot of risk online, but I think you got to do that to try and know, what you can get away with, and then maybe he's still learning. He's still kind of new to the downhill scene, just what he can get away with. And the kid's got some speed, and I rode the chair with him in copper with Heinz. And they're a good team. They're gelling, and just number one, I want to see American downhiller on top, but I think that he has probably the best shot. But yeah, you never know.
Nice. You never know. And Nyman, Ganong, Even Bennett, man, can switch it around. So a lot of great outlook for our American downhillers. So thanks, AJ. Thanks, Daron. Thanks, Sully. How to watch? Well, you can watch Lake Louise on NBC Peacock. If you're in Canada, you can certainly watch it on Canadian TV. Next week, we'll be talking about Beaver Creek, the Birds of Prey course, a course that our own D Money, Daron Rahlves, owns the record on. He's the fastest human on the planet to get from the starting gate to the red tail finish line on 2 skis. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, D, and thank you, Sully. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.
See you guys.
Thanks.